This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And here we are in a very chilly Pittsburgh today. It's a little bit cold and windy out there, a little bit different than the temperatures in the desert in Vegas last weekend, but the Steelers come back with a 32-13 victory over the Raiders in Las Vegas on Sunday. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And a lot to unpeel.
3 of you all commented. I had to actually put jeans on today. It's chilly. You know, right?
There you go.
No shorts today.
And a jacket.
And a jacket. I'm like all bundled up. This will get me through the winter.
Yeah, usually Matt's in shorts and a T-shirt of some
Used
sort.
to be a T-shirt. Now I wear my fancy Steeler gear since we're on YouTube.
There you go.
Give us a follow.
But the Steelers' defense, I thought, defense and running game yesterday were the two keys to victory.
Yeah. Special teams weren't too shabby either.
Special teams made a game-changing play, and typically when you do those kind of things well, you win the game by 19 points.
Yeah.
Going away. And, you know, the running game, I mean, Najee Harris was 14 for 106.
He was one of the best players in the field.
Breaking off chunk run after chunk run, and even when they thought they had him tackled, he's still running through guys, and that was from the beginning of the game. Like the first 2 plays of the game were like 10-yard plays by Najee Harris.
I thought he set the tone.
Yeah.
You know, the physicality of it all, and even his best runs.
Right up the middle.
Yeah, I mean, some
right
of his best
lane.
runs. Right, exactly. A high percent of his runs, almost 50%, were between the tackles, which is something we were calling for yesterday. Obviously, Fields contributes with his legs as well, but it was mostly the Najee show on the ground. And again, he kind of put the team on his back a little bit. I don't want to get too far ahead or too far along here without mentioning, I think the Raiders are really bad and we're very vulnerable, but a good team destroys a bad team. And that's kind of
what you do.
Yeah.
You look at it, and, the total yardage.
It's very misleading.
293 to 275.
Yeah.
It wasn't anywhere near that.
No.
The Steelers in the last couple of drives were Cam Hayward's not out there, T.J. Watt's not out there. They were just.
There was a pivotal 4th or 3rd down, T.J. Watt's on the sideline. At the end, so yards per play, first downs, cumulative stats too were very equal, but they weren't equal.
It wasn't equal. So after the opening drive, I made note of this in my 5 for Friday, or my 10 thoughts after the game. The Steelers gave up 70 yards on the opening drive, and everybody, of course, on social media is in a panic. Oh, here we go again.
Right.
Steelers defense, this thing's
They're
overrated.
Flat, blah, blah,
blah, blah, blah, blah, blah.
And it wasn't a good drive. I mean, that was about the only bad thing the defense did.
A lot of misdirection, and they got the Steelers. Yeah. And, hey, if they haven't shown that to you on tape, what are you going to do? That's what happens.
So I read your piece, and I want to get to that in 1 second. But I think there's 2 ways to react to that. I mean, if it's Dallas and they're moving the ball down the field all day, that's a lot different than, they came out flat, they weren't prepared, blah, blah, blah. Or you could say they made an adjustment and figured out what they were doing and then shut the door on them. There is a half-empty,
which is
half
what
full
happened.
It's exactly what happened, right.
The Raiders came out and did some things they hadn't expected, which they hadn't shown it yet.
Right.
It's a new quarterback, and they played to his strengths, and good for them.
Yeah, they get paid too.
The next 6 drives, they had 55 yards.
And the game was over.
And the game was over by that point.
Yeah, 100%. And then all the yardage afterwards really didn't matter at all. It was totally inconsequential. But those next 6 drives were the story.
And you forced. Not only did you get them to punt, or didn't give up first downs even on those possessions. They fumbled. They turned it over on downs. They got a block punt. I mean, there were game-changing plays that.
Very much so.
They
Big
just didn't
plays
handle
by the Steelers.
Yeah,
100%. And a lot of them. Takeaways, and even without sacks, there were a ton of big defensive and special teams plays. Again, the Raiders aren't very good, but you made them look pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do to bad teams.
Like T.J. Watt, for example, didn't have a sack, but was a dominant run defender and forced fumbles and impacting games other ways.
Yeah.
Cam had a sack, but was tremendous in all facets. You know what I mean? Like, they were really good in that game.
Yeah. I mean, they were – I saw a thing somebody put out today that the the rookie tackle that started.
Glaze.
Yeah.
Glaze.
He had a great game against T.J. Watt. Gave up no pressures. Now, first of all,
it was not a one-on-one matchup.
It was
ever.
never a one-on-one matchup. Secondly, I don't know what's considered a pressure because there were multiple times where Watt's rushing the passer and O'Connell had to step up in the pocket to get away from him. To me, that's pressure.
Yeah.
And thirdly, they're getting the ball out so quickly, well short of the sticks. You can't tell me that,
he's going to beat 3 guys in 2.1 seconds or whatever. Or I did a podcast afterwards, and I said on purpose 10 times, all they have was Brock Bowers. All they had was Brock Bowers. They didn't have any running game. They didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have other pass catchers. And so they're throwing him bubble screens behind the line of scrimmage.
Right. Yeah. They're hoping he breaks a tackle. And
and he's really good after the catch, but that's asking a lot. You know?
I talked to Dante Jackson after the game, and we talked about it last week on our Thursday show with Rob. I said, you got to tackle the catch in this game, particularly with him.
Yes.
He's a 245-pound tight end that runs 4.5-ish, somewhere in that range. And if he gets going, you're in trouble. And he said that was one of the talking points of the week last week is they couldn't let him catch and get his shoulder squared and get upfield and start making guys miss or running them over. And they did a great job of that. He averaged 7.9 yards a catch. He had 9 catches, but for 71 yards. And that included an 18-yarder.
All day long.
There was an 18-yarder down the field. You take that one out of the equation, it was like 5 yards a catch.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, we did talk about this a lot leading up. His average depth of target coming into this game isn't real high. It was right around 5 or 5.5, something like that, low. Because they throw him the ball and say, make something happen, and because they don't have a whole lot else. And he is capable. I did a show earlier. It'll air later, I guess. I shouldn't tell people I did it earlier. But with Wolf and Rob, and we'll have Rob on next segment, just talking about one of the things that doesn't show up always in the stats, but one team tackled really, really well, and they won.
The other team didn't.
The other team really did and turned down some things.
There was a 15-yard run that Najee had. I think every Raiders defender touched him.
How about the one they made the cornerback fall down without even touching him? Jones just fell over. Shake them out of his shoes. You don't see that from Najee very often. You see him run over that corner.
Yeah.
But make a miss, and as he falls down with no contact, and you're right. He ran over the entire defense on several, but I know which one you're talking about, too.
I mean, the Raiders averaged 8.4 yards per reception.
Yeah.
You're not going to get to the quarterback in that situation. You're just not.
No.
It's catch the ball if in the shotgun, if it's, under center, 3 steps and the ball's out. Mm-hmm. You're not getting to the quarterback. You're just not. And they were very cognizant of not allowing T.J. Watt as a pass rusher to wreck the game.
Yeah.
What they didn't count on was T.J. Watt, the run defender, wrecking the game.
So we reference Pro Football Focus a lot, and some of it I can take or leave. Some of it's very valuable, a little bit of both. And I was just killing time in the lobby before we went on the air, and I looked at their grades for the first time. Watt had a perfect run defense grade. He had a 99 run defense grade. I don't think I've ever seen that. And it was earned. You couldn't run to that side of the field no matter what happened.
If you really looked at that opening drive, a lot of it was attacking the left side in the run game. Yes. They didn't run at TJ, and then they hit him for one. They kind of got him to come in, and they hit the little dump off to Madison and over his head. He was fantastic.
And I want to give those other outside linebackers some credit,
they played
too.
well.
I would have done the exact same thing. Am I going to run at Watt, or am I going to run at dudes that haven't hardly ever been on the field? Of course we're going to run behind Colton Miller against dudes that have never been on the field. And all I wanted from those guys is don't stink. They were better than that. They were fine. They weren't a liability. Great. I don't know that I want to play the Ravens with those guys.
Right,
with Derrick Henry, right.
Yeah.
But
I did talk to Alex Highsmith after the game, and he is definitely coming back this week.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, that was the ramp-up process last week. He'll be ready to go. But really, Madison had 6 carries for 25 yards on the opening drive.
Okay.
His next 8 carries, he finished with 14. His next 8 carries, he got 8 yards.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
No quarterback rush threat, nobody else. Their run game was bad.
They averaged 3 yards per carry in that game, and that's what you got to do to a team like that. Just completely shut it down. I guess we should probably talk about the quarterback play.
Yeah.
As a runner, Fields was just what they needed.
Really good. Yep.
As a passer, not so much.
No, and he got bailed out with his worst throw of the day.
Yeah.
And boy, the Raiders had a habit of hurting themselves on top of getting pushed around. I mean, I think they had 4 or 5 penalties, and every one of them was catastrophically against the Raiders, like at the wrong time, and none more so than an interception where he hits
in the red zone,
right in the numbers. And fortunately for the Steelers and Fields, roughing the passer. I'm not just harping on that play, but his accuracy, I thought overall was below the line.
Yeah,
Really,
they hit the 31-yard play to Pickens late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, he had just barely over 100 passing yards in the game.
Yeah.
It was not, I go back to the sequence. They're driving. I think Harris had a run down to the Raiders 31 early in the second quarter. He overthrows a wide open Pickens on the sideline.
Yeah.
Then he comes back and overthrows a wide open Pat Freiermuth on the sideline.
Just the 3 in a row.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
And then he comes back and misses Pickens again, way over his head. And I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be a touchdown drive. You've got the momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And he missed 3 wide open guys. And then you go back to the touchdown pass that he did throw that got negated because he was over the line.
Right.
To Freiermuth when he threw back across his body.
I thought that was a terrible decision they got away with. But hey,
Calvin Austin standing in the corner of the end zone on the right side where he is rolling.
Okay.
All by himself. It's happening right in front of me.
I need to watch that play again. Okay.
You'll see it on the L22.
Yeah.
The whole play. Nobody covered him.
Nobody covered him.
He's by himself. There's not a defender within 10 yards of him, and he never saw him.
I mean, I found it odd that there were 2 Steeler receivers right next to each other, surrounded by like 4 Raiders.
Yeah.
Like somebody else had to be open. And of course,
it was Calvin Austin.
Calvin Austin, right?
He's over there waving his hands, and never saw him.
And that would have been a tremendous play we'd have talked about in the highlight reel if it would have stood. There's no question about it. But I don't think it was the right decision.
No.
And he's immensely talented, and he can do things like that. That's a feather in his cap. But take the easy one and throw it before the line of scrimmage.
And I know they're 4-2, and he's been a big reason why they've been 4-2. I think Mike Tomlin tomorrow goes to Russell Wilson.
I would too. And I get it. And I appreciate everything Fields brings to the table and has done. It's exceeded my expectations, and by no means am I done with that guy.
And I would still use him in packages, and I would still do some things with him. And
he shows value.
It's a lot of value. It's an easy sell because you just go to him and say, hey, at the beginning of the season, Russ was the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I named Russ. You understood that. We talked about it. Russ is healthy now. We appreciate what you've done. We're still going to use you. We still like you. Hey, Justin, we still love you.
Yeah.
But
you may get in 2 plays later. I mean, your time is not over, right?
And the people out there saying, yeah, but Russell Wilson, he doesn't make some of those plays with the legs that Fields does. I get it.
He doesn't.
But they're acting like Russell Wilson is end-stage Ben Roethlisberger.
I know.
Like he can't escape at all. He can't run. He had 350 rushing yards last year.
He was one of the best athletes at the position for much of his career.
And
I don't think all of a sudden
probably a top 10 guy.
Yeah, he's not a statue all of a sudden. I'm not going to design runs for him. I don't want him breaking tackles of linebackers and things like that.
But I also want him at the line of scrimmage diagnosing the defense because the other thing is, this offensive line is giving up some pressures and he's not going to escape that. He's going to see it before it happens.
He's going to see it before it happens. And once again, Fields' time to throw was quite high, well over 3 seconds. That's awful hard on a line. And that's his style of play. He did throw an interception that didn't count. But to Fields' credit, on the score sheet, he has thrown 1 interception all year.
He also threw the backwards pass to Najee Harris or to Jalen Warren that was as soon as he threw it, because again, I'm on that end of the field.
Yeah.
I'm at like the 15, 20 to 15 yard line in the press box, and he threw it. I'm like, oh boy, that's not a good, because it wasn't open.
Right.
B,
and it was backwards.
It was backwards. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but what I was going to say is he also has a bunch of fumbles.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the
He's
king
been
of
extremely
quarterback
lucky.
fumbles. Right. He's been very fortunate of what's been picked up.
That was another fumble.
That was another fumble.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they've only lost 2. I think he's fumbled 6 or 7 times.
That's like Russian roulette.
Yeah.
You're not going to get all those.
No, that's fumble luck.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing, too, and this isn't pick on field session.
No, not at all.
Was more than good enough to win, especially against that opponent. And I want to look into this after the Monday night game when all the official stats are done. But I wonder how many passes the Steelers have thrown into the end zone. It's got to be a very low number. I mean, there was a couple There's one to Pickens. There was Freiermuth was, there's a couple in that game.
The one he threw late to Pickens should have been a touchdown.
Should have been a touchdown, right? But he
underthrew
low.
it.
And
Yeah.
we've talked about this since he was signed. Wilson throws touchdown passes.
He throws touchdown passes.
Into the end zone, and it's not easy to do, but their attempts into the end zone are low. I guarantee
it's
that.
one of the reasons why they went out and signed Russell Wilson is because he is a veteran quarterback who throws touchdown passes, who can diagnose a defense, and if they're showing something, he's going to hit the hot. You're not going to get the pressure.
Yeah. It'll be a lot of I don't mean to be hard on our fans or listeners, but a lot of things you won't realize you're seeing will go
Correct.
smoother.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Like things that are happening now that you think, oh, this is going to be really bad if Russell Wilson's in there, aren't going to happen because Russell Wilson's in there.
Procedural things and diagnosing things and knowing where to go with football and picking up blitzes and all that stuff will go cleaner.
And this isn't, I understand, this isn't 2018 Russell Wilson.
No.
But he's still good enough to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
The procedural things, recognizing defenses and things of that nature.
I mean, it was in camp versus air, but it was night and day difference on those
Absolutely.
things at training camp.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of them's been on the block 1,000 times.
Yeah, and the throwing of the football. And again, I don't think Justin's a bad passer.
I don't either.
But
I bet Wilson's more accurate.
He is extremely more accurate.
Right.
Yeah, he's he's better at doing quarterback type things. Wilson, he just is.
They both have value,
and Fields has value.
No question.
I'm not giving up on him as a quarterback. I think as a, somebody you want to try to continue to develop. I'm all in. I am all in.
Yes.
And if he's
gotten better.
You come out of this and say we want to work with him another offseason, and he's our starter going into next year.
I get it.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't know if $40 million a year get it, but
right.
you know what I mean. I mean, everyone depends on the price and all that stuff.
And quite frankly, I don't know that I want to give up a 4th-round draft pick for that when I can get it for a 6.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. Right. Yeah. If he's the best guy, he's the best guy. But
I would go to
Wilson.
He's not clearly the best guy.
He's not clearly the best guy. And Wilson was signed to at least see it.
Yeah.
Again, the first segment after a win shouldn't be quarterback controversy.
It shouldn't, but this is where we're at right now.
But it's the most topical conversation.
It wasn't the first topic.
It's a good point. The first segment. That and Zack Frazier's injury are the two
huge
big things looming right now.
Which
They're the two elephants in the room.
I don't think that one it's not season ending or anything like that.
I thought for sure it was going to be bad.
I
that
saw
guy
him
play on a broken leg too. But
yeah, I saw him after the game. He's in a walking boot, but he's walking.
Mm-hmm.
If it were something that were season ending, he's probably not walking on his own.
I would have rather lost any of the offensive linemen, and it got to. If that would have been season ending, it could have been.
Now, I don't know anything
stages.
for certain there.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, that's.
But he was in obvious
tomorrow,
pain
course,
too.
but
I mean,
yeah.
I also saw Daniels leaving the locker room in a walking boot after tearing his Achilles. I hope it's nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, of course not. But we don't know. But again, if it's not season ending, whew.
Yeah. Right. You dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
And again, this will be this weekend. The 5th starting lineup.
Assuming he doesn't play.
He doesn't play this weekend, I doubt that.
That seems
5th starting lineup in 7 games on the offensive line.
Hard to win that way, man.
It really is. The fact that they're 4-2. Again, credit to Justin Fields. He's gotten them through this. Credit to the defense.
Credit to Omar Khan for having much depth as he had to survive this. I mean, most lines couldn't withstand that. I mean, it would have been one of the worst line in the league if you told me it started 5 different units.
Absolutely. Let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll hear from Rob King when we get back right after this. And welcome back. I'm Dale Lolley, joined here by Matt Williamson. And on the phone line, the Justin Miller hotline, Rob King, voice of the Steelers. And Kinger, 4-2 now for the Steelers. 3 of those wins coming on the road. So they're 3-1 on the road, basically through the first half of their road schedule. And that was a complete and utter takeover of a stadium on Sunday by Steeler fans.
Steelers fans, Steelers team, Steelers everything. Yeah, there was a lot of towels swirling at the proper time, as there always is. I'm amazed. It's been, a decade probably since I've been on the road with the Steelers, mostly doing pregame stuff on the Steelers radio network. And Penguins responsibilities and that kind of thing, and other things that have kept me off the road. And it's amazing to see in every city that we go to, Steelers bars and Steelers fans walking around the city and not just at the hotel, everywhere around the city with their Steelers jerseys on, representing. And then you go to the game and, TJ Watt says, "Let's go." And 15,000 fans stand up and they're twirling the terrible towels. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing and so cool to see.
So, Rob, I teased it in the first segment because, we had a conversation earlier today about the discrepancy in tackling in this game. I mean, how obvious was that to you?
Yeah, really obvious. And it's Antonio Pierce must be, well, I would say pulling his hair out, but I think he shaved his head.
Right.
But he was a tough, hard-nosed football player. And, he's got a team of guys that don't, when they're of their list of, to-do list going out there, like tackling must not be on the to-do list. I mean, I don't understand what's going on out there. And it was something that he talked about all week. He said, it's back to training camp, back to fundamentals. We have to tackle better. Now, Najee Harris is no fun to tackle, but still, I think that factor. And then after the game, as Wolf and I were clearing out of Allegiant Stadium, into their post-game show, and the guy on the post-game show was killing them, saying, "Look, there's guys that just don't look like they want to be here. They don't want to tackle. You got to get rid of them. You got to get them out of here and get some guys in here who can tackle." So that's clearly been a point of emphasis for the Raiders. Now, Najee Harris doesn't make it any easier on you, that's for sure.
It's easy to say stuff like that, but you're 6 games into the season. It's not like you can go bring in a whole new roster.
Right.
No. That's it's really a not very imposing roster, especially without, when you look at the defensive side of the ball, no Christian Wilkins. You wonder, and, I don't know what they did under Mike Mayock and John Gruden.
Not much.
And, that unceremonious end to that reign with Gruden. But
I'll tell you, they drafted very poorly.
Well, you look at their
and
team,
that's showing
and
up now, yeah.
Yeah, there's like, you look at the first picks, guys that have been 5 years, and it groomed, and you look around, this roster, you're seeing, Hayward, DJ, and Heist, and Benton, Louder. I'm just looking at the defense guy top.
We're having some issues there with Rob's phone line. We'll try to get back in touch with him here. I don't know what's going on with that, but maybe he's still in flight. No, he wasn't, because he was on the flight back with me. So, but he's right. That
along those lines, I was kind of going to expand on it. Is he mentioned the Gruden Mayock era? So, not only did they draft very poorly, but they traded Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack and
traded for Antonio Brown and things of that nature.
But they traded for a lot of picks that they didn't hit on. It's the blow it up thing. You talk about it. If you blow it up, you might not build it back up.
Always a danger of that,
right.
For sure. And
they're drafting Cleveland Farrell with the 5th overall pick and things like that. It's like, well, you swapped out Khalil Mack for Farrell. What do you think's going to happen?
A feral dog would have been better.
Right. It's a bad roster, right?
Yeah, it really is. And, the Steelers took advantage of that. We got Rob back on the phone line here. Rob, you in a better spot here?
You guys sound much better now.
There we
that
go.
Never really quite sounded right. Yeah, good. Yeah, I was going to say, you look at, I was just, naming, I don't know how much of you heard of that, but
very
just,
little.
Thinking about the defensive front, you look at TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig, and Cam Hayward has been there for a long time. Keanu Benton, Isaiah Loudermilk, DeMarvin Leal, and you just go down, and that's just like the defensive front. I'm looking at their roster, and it's like, free agent, San Francisco, so and very few of them are pick guys that they selected.
Homegrown
and it is
talent.
Showing
yeah.
it's a talent poor roster. Robert Spillane is he's a good NFL, nice player to have on your team. He's a leading tackler. To have Max Crosby, Wilford, he paid him $10 to come in here. He's a good player. He's a $110 million player, but he's a good football player for sure. And then you just look around the rest of the roster, and Hobbs. I kind of like Hobbs, and then you see a guy do something here. It's just not a very good roster, and it's that on both sides of the ball. There's just not. Think about this. Like I know there's drop offs, but I was looking at when they said Myers the night before. Hey, he's been downgraded to doubtful, and I looked at their team and I added up Myers and Adams. Okay, well 1,221 career receptions. Well, the other 5 guys, after you took those 2 guys out, they combined for 24 career catches. There's just no depth on that team. I mean, none. And then, even a guy like Michael Mayer, who they took in the second round last year, tight end, they should be able to run 2 really good tight ends out there. Bowers is a total stud. He's been away from the team for what they're calling personal reasons. It's not a very good football team, and the Steelers took advantage of that.
Rob, when you kicked out there for a minute, I mentioned they got the old staff, and traded like Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper for all these first-round picks. And I just want to look it up real quick. These are some of their recent first-round picks. I mean, Tyree Wilson, they're getting nothing out of. They didn't have one in 2022. Alex Leatherwood in 2021 isn't in the league. Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett are the first-round picks in 2020. Neither's in the league. Cleveland Farrell was a 4th overall pick, a backup somewhere. Jonathan Abrams was a first rounder. I mean, miss after miss after miss in the first round. What do you expect?
Yeah, I agree. And, and then the misevaluation. I mean, look, I don't know how much Jacobs wanted and whether that was a financial thing, but Jacobs is a good player now, you know.
They used to have Derek Carr, too.
Yeah, that's right. Right. It's a long way from being a good roster. And, the thing that scared me about them coming in was a couple things. I mean, they played really hard for Antonio Pierce. I think he's gotten the best out of a not very good roster. And when, he's got had a 500 record with that team going into it. Josh McDaniels was 10-26 or something, or whatever the number before Pierce took over. Wasn't very good. But I always think that until a team knows they're bad, there's a certain danger to them, until they're kind of looking at the schedule, but kind of thinking about, maybe I'll take a January vacation with the missus and the kids, and head out to Hawaii. When they're still thinking about football, they're dangerous because we know, look, you don't want to be 2-4, you want to be 3-3. So I thought there was an element of danger. I thought they played as well as they could for a quarter and a half. And then the Steelers were just a better team and did what a better team should do, and that's just dominate them.
Yeah, and now at 4-2 has a much different sound to it, much different ring to it than 3-3 going into the battle for New York over the next 2 weeks here. They get the Jets and then the Giants, a couple of more prime time games here, Rob. Of course, the Jets coming up Sunday night. We'll get a chance to see them tonight against the Bills, so they're going to be on a short week coming to Pittsburgh.
And then they were in Europe last week.
And they were in Europe last week.
They fired their coach in the meantime.
There's a lot of turnover there, and the Steelers are going to start getting, as I mentioned in the previous segment, they'll get Alex Highsmith back this week. Some of these other pieces that have been missing here. You got Jaylen Warren back the last game, and he kind of knocked the rust off. Maybe you get Cordell Patterson back for this game. Obviously, you lost Zack Frazier yesterday, and we'll see how long that goes. But they're starting to get some of the pieces back that you've been missing here, and we'll see what Mike does with the quarterback situation.
I mean, I was asked about that earlier. I'd be surprised if it wasn't Justin Fields, but again, that's why Mike Tomlin's a head coach. That's his decision to make. I think Fields is, he's let him do a 4-2 record, and it's what he's done, but also what he's not done. He hasn't turned the ball over. He hasn't thrown a bunch of interceptions. But you're right, that's going to be interesting. And I think the Jets are another one of those teams to me that's dangerous. That I think is a team that believes that they are a playoff team. They believe that they're a Super Bowl contender. They believe that. And so, and this is a really important game for them tonight against the Bills. Of the two games, I expect one to be the more difficult game for sure, because I think it's a Jets team. You got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. He has not gotten off to a great start. as he's knocking, you talk about a guy knocking the rust off, you don't want to be the one facing him when he, if he's still got mojo in there, you don't want to be the one facing him when he finds that mojo. So it's a game fraught with danger coming up against the Jets, I think.
It's a little different, of course, but we talked about some guys on the horizon coming back. And I looked at Patrick Queen early in the season and was sort of concerned. Like he's swimming a little bit. He's not what you paid for necessarily. That might be changing pretty quick. I thought he had a big impact on this game and was the best game as a Steeler.
I totally agree. Sideline to sideline,
Seemed like there were two of them out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did. And, I think that when you think about the Steelers, you knew the front, Cam Hayward, all he had to do was bounce back, and he did, and he has. And you knew that front was going to be good especially when you include Highsmith and Watt. And, the additions on the back end to fortify that. And then, when you go out and make the early splash with Patrick Queen, you're looking for a sideline-to-sideline guy, a guy that can run, a guy that can be a three-down guy, and he's all of that. He's everything. And then, when you can utilize a Landon Roberts and Peyton Wilson the way you want, I mean, he's a huge factor and gives him that gives the team the playmaker at the second level that they'd like to have. Now, Landon Roberts has proven to be a playmaker in his own way just by the hard physical hits and the separation that we saw last week with the fumble. But, I agree with you. I think Patrick Queen, I think that was his best game. And, here's the other thing too, guys. And we, every once in a while, a team will throw some new pieces together and they'll immediately gel. And you'll be like, wow, this is phenomenal. But that's more the exception than the rule. Usually, we look at the offensive line. You need some continuity to get together. You look at, new players coming in a new system with new expectations of how to play. That's going to take a while. Even though you have the OTAs and training camp and preseason, it ratchets up to a different speed with different game planning that you're going against. Okay, so look, if you're just sitting in camp and it's you're working against basic stuff, that's one thing. Well, guess what? The other team's scheming all week to try to put you out of position. So what happens when you're seeing something new? You move a yard this way or a yard that way. Well, you need to have some continuity playing together to have that happen and guys to be able to play at their absolute peak. And I think Patrick Queen played fast and played really well this last week.
Yeah, as did and they got another interception at Dante Jackson. That's number 3 for him now. You miss Deontay Johnson, but where's this team at right now without Jackson? I mean, he's been pretty good. He's got 6 pass defenses too in 6 games. I mean, he's played really well.
Yeah, I think that's if you look, you want them both, right? You want
you'd love to have them both, but
if you could have them both, that'd be great. That wasn't allowed. They didn't allow that to happen. So, to me, and I thought about this a lot, especially in light of the hiring of Arthur Smith. What does your team need more? Another really good, solid corner, more speed on that back end, the ability to make some plays, or another weapon in the passing game? Well, to me, it's pretty easy. They needed the corner. You need both, right? But you needed the corner, and now we're going to have an opportunity to see, can Calvin Austin step up on occasion? Well, he had one big game this year for sure. Are the tight ends going to be utilized more? Are we going to see more of the running backs in the passing game? I think because of the way Arthur Smith runs his offense, there are certain ways that the Steelers can overcome the lack of the guy. What everybody has pointed to, and I think a lot, is what happens if, heaven forbid, George Pickens gets hit by the injury bug and you're missing him for a week or two. You don't really have anybody that looks like they can for sure step up and take those targets and force the other team to take, that player into your game plan's regards and shift coverage that way and think about how you're going to attack a team that way. So that I think is something that, and again, they've been rumored to be interested in guys. So they clearly think that if those rumors are true, they clearly think they could use another receiver in that mix. But again, if you told me which would you rather have, I would take Dante Jackson.
So, Rob, it sure seems like they're going to start their 5th group of offensive linemen this upcoming week. I mean, we don't know that for sure, or the extent of Zack Frazier's injury, but it's not even Halloween yet, and there's a lot more football to be played. To me, that might be the biggest concern with the whole team right now.
I don't think you're off the mark at all, Matt. I mean, again, and I just go back to sitting there in training camp and thinking, man, Dylan Cook's pretty good. Is he going to make this team? And, Ryan McCollum, he'd be a nice guy to have. Is he going to make this team? And, man, oh, man, they have a lot of offensive linemen. Well,
good thing they did.
Now you don't. Yeah, because you are, and somebody, I can't remember which show asked me, I think we were talking about this last week, like, okay, you're still fine, right? You're still fine. Okay, you lost Herbig. Okay, that's a blow. You lost James Daniels. That's a blow. You had somebody to replace guys. You felt perfect about. Okay, you lost Fautanu. Well, Broderick Jones was awfully good last year, right? You can go back to him. Okay, Uncle, that's enough. Well, then you lose Frazier. You're getting to the point now where, and again, nobody's got unlimited depth, especially at offensive line. And so it will be interesting to see what goes on this week. And if you're the Jets, are you going to start, thinking about where's Quinn and Williams going to line up? And do we want to maybe get
their front seven's pretty good.
Yeah, their front seven is that's right. It's pretty good. So
well, they're pretty good against the pass or rushing the passer. They've not been good against the run, which is something to keep an eye on tonight. I want to see how they stop Buffalo's running game. But,
right.
the Jets have been very good against the pass. Yeah,
I'm sure the Steelers would like to ram it down their throat. I'm sure that if you told them, how does another buck, what is it, 163, 183, I think 183 that they had on the ground, how does another 183 sound? Okay, tell me where to sign. You'll take that for sure against the Jets because that's, good things are going to happen if you're doing that. And then, again, that might be a big factor in this game, and we'll see. Will they shuffle some guys around? I don't know. I mean, is Spencer Anderson going to be in the mix somewhere? Is it definitely going to be McCollum? I don't know. That's assuming, again, that Zack Frazier is going to be out for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll see where that.
And we don't know that yet.
Yeah, we just don't know, and we'll find out later this week. And maybe Mike Tomlin will shed some light on that tomorrow. Kinger, we'll let you go. And it was a long night. I know. Getting in. I got home at 2:00 in the morning. It wasn't that long, but it was long enough.
Yeah.
After being on the West Coast. But we'll let you go. We appreciate your time. That was Rob King, Steelers play-by-play announcer. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And Matt and I will be back with more right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, looking at the game more from yesterday, I thought, as I mentioned in the previous segment, Dante Jackson has been a great addition to this team. You just look at what he did in that game yesterday. We mentioned Patrick Queen.
Elliott
was fantastic.
Talking about new additions? Yeah.
There's new additions to the defense. Patrick Queen, 13 tackles, a tackle for a loss. Deshaun Elliott had 6 tackles in the fumble recovery. But I thought the biggest game, I think it was beginning of the third quarter, the Raiders get the ball, and it's like 3rd and 5 or something like that. And they run a little crossing route, and he tackles it for like a 3-yard gain. And they're forced punt. I think it was right before the block kick, actually, now that I think about it.
Real early in the half. And
the
game was tight at that point.
If it wasn't that one, it was I don't. They're all. It's all strung together. But he had
you had a late night.
He forced a punt on a crosser that if he doesn't make the tackle there, the Raiders maybe get a first down, start getting some momentum, and he just said, no, that's not going to happen here. He's been really good.
You talking about Elliott or Queen?
Elliott.
Yeah, 100%. Elliott's been great from the start. I think Jackson's been great from the start. Big plays. Jackson's going to get targeted a lot with Porter on the other side, even if they're in cover 3 or whatever. But I think people are going to start shying away from that. Elliott's done everything well.
Yeah.
I mean, jack of all trades, does everything really, really well. Plays the run, compliments Minka, the play you mentioned, tight end eraser to some degree as well. And I really like where Queen's come too, and it's a nice situation. Sometimes you got to give the front office credit for their vision of how to build that back seven.
Yeah.
And something we talked about, Rob brought it up, but we've been bringing it up for months. team speed on the back end is night and day different than last year. I mean,
Absolutely.
With respect to Wallace and Peterson and those dudes, they don't run like these guys. It's not even close.
No, I mean it's been very good, and surprising to me was that the Raiders actually ended up with more tackles for a loss than the Steelers did yesterday.
Did they really?
Now some of that was late when the Steelers were trying to run out the clock and trying to do that, but.
Does a kneel down count as a tackle for
loss? I'm looking here because somebody, I guess.
I bet it does.
Somebody has to get
yardage,
credit with a tackle there. I'm just looking here. No, it doesn't. There's no
TFL in the last play of the game.
Unless there's a team tackle for loss there. But no.
I mean, because you did lose a yard or whatever.
I texted you early in the game.
Mm-hmm.
First couple of possessions for the Steelers. And the Raiders were in single high.
Early downs.
Yeah. And Trevor Moehring was just sprinting.
He definitely had a tackle for loss.
He had 3 of them.
Yeah, okay.
He had 3 of them. And I'm like, you got to take some shots on these early downs. You just can't keep running into that because you're not going to go anywhere.
They're not going to go anywhere. It was a great observation, but it wasn't as easy to see on TV. But that's been something we've talked about for weeks now. It seems like Najee's the one that's getting the brunt of it, but linebackers and safeties are coming down.
They're crashing
now, you know, and especially on early downs. And you have to make them pay for that. And I apologize for bringing this up, but Wilson will make you pay more than Fields for those things too.
Yeah, they did take a shot. I think it was after the first possession, and they went down and kicked a field goal. But every time they were in early downs, the Raiders are in single high. And again, Moehring, is just crashing at the snap of the ball. And they came out and they did take a shot on the second possession to Pickens down the sideline, and it just didn't connect on it.
No.
Yeah. Actually,
and you don't have to throw 50, 60 yarders.
The third possession, because the second possession, the first play, Moehring blows it up for a negative gain of 5 yards, and then they throw a couple of short passes and they punt. And I'm like, they got to look at this and see that that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
And attack it down the field. They tried. They missed a play to Pickens down the sideline, but you just have to be able to beat that stuff.
You have to be able to beat it, and when teams are doing that, it makes it harder to execute play action because it's just another beat. You got to hold the football. And go routes are great, but it doesn't even have to be an 80-yard bomb.
There were some slants that were there that when they're got everybody up like that and there's only one guy in the middle of the field deep, like if they're crashing and you hit that slant, look out.
If those are the tendencies, right. Exactly. And again, I think Wilson would do that better, more just from a recognition standpoint.
Yeah.
This is how they're trying to play us. I've beaten this 10 years ago. I know exactly. I remember when we had Marshawn Lynch and they did the exact same thing. That type of thing. That's not a knock on Fields at all. But you hit Pickens on a deep slant or a crosser or something like that, makes one guy miss or the guy that's guarding them in man coverage. You can make a lot of
those chunk plays will come
after the catch too.
I will say, I don't know that the Raiders. They acted like they had never seen a mobile quarterback before. On some of these, like they just allowed him escape lane after escape lane.
In terms of a pass rush plan, you're talking about?
Just everybody running upfield past the quarterback. And
really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad. I mean, it's one of the most untalked about things in defensive football is a pass rush plan. Why do you think Lamar doesn't destroy the Steelers?
Because they have a good plan to hem him in, keep him in the pocket.
Plan. They keep him in a phone booth. And, he can still do a lot of damage to you. But Bud Dupree running upfield doesn't do anybody any good at all. Or big exposed lanes in the A and B gaps. I mean, there was a couple instances where the seas parted for Fields.
Yeah.
And then, I'll take it.
And then they finally ran a draw on one of them.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, if they're going to keep rushing up the field like that, boom. Wait a second and just take off running. Turn into another big game.
Everybody's behind me chasing, and you're not going to catch them that way.
And you send all your receivers, you guys all run downfield and clear that out.
I'll be honest, I don't think the Raiders are a greatly coached team. I mean, he's an interim head coach that's, I'm not saying he's in over his head, but it's a big job, and they don't have the horses to deal with it. And if they're going to give you those type of advantages, take them all day long.
Yeah, and I thought that the Steelers were able to do that with the running game stuff. And again, tackling Najee is no fun, but you got to get them on the ground. You know that going into this game.
I guess that's been a point of contention with the Raiders too. I mean, like when all the Devontae Adams stuff starts coming out, Pierce was talking about how we want guys that are bought in, and everyone thought Adams isn't that guy. I think he's talking about the tacklers.
He's talking about his defense, that you guys look like some guys making some business decisions,
I mean, other than Max Crosby, who was as good as anyone, he had some tackles for loss too, I assume. I mean, he was a force.
He did.
I don't know. I thought he had at least. There was only one sack in the game, which was strange.
He had 2. Yeah.
He had 2? Okay.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal player, but a lot of that defense needs to be reevaluated.
Yeah.
Reevaluated.
Yeah, sacks don't count as a tackle for loss.
No.
It has to be in a running play. So, yeah, I mean, Crosby's good, but they just don't have a lot else there. And, the Steelers have more.
And if you played with more, I'm not saying the Raiders didn't care, but if you played with your hair on fire and disciplined and kept Fields in the pocket, you at least can get the most out of your minimal talent, and they didn't do that.
They didn't do that.
No.
And again, the Steelers were good enough to take advantage of their poor play.
Yep.
I didn't think it was the Steelers, particularly offensively, playing well.
I didn't think they played their best game.
No.
But it was more than good enough.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a point of contention now with the Raiders, if we were doing their network, would be, well, all of our penalties were so costly. Yeah, that was terrible.
But you did them.
But you did them. But it was the little things like that, too. Like, you got a punt blocked, and, you're not keeping Fields in the pocket, and you're not tackling well.
If you look at the punt block as well, Jeremiah Moon runs right past their personal protector.
Okay.
Like it was 4 on each side.
Yeah.
And they shifted 5 on one side, 4 on the other, and they shifted a guy late, I think, if I remember correctly. And the punt protector is looking this way, and Moon runs right by him. Runs right by him, untouched.
Yeah, and I don't know the rules.
Well designed by Danny Smith.
He as I was going to say,
these don't happen by accident.
They don't happen by accident. It happens way too often. I don't know the intricacies of punt protection. I don't watch all 22 special teams film. There's only so many minutes in a day, and I'm not going down that alley. But when you consistently block kicks year after year, and with different people, we know Killerbru's great at it. We know Matakevich is a great
I just assumed when it happened that it was Killebrew, and it wasn't.
I assume so. Right. But that's design. That's coaching.
Yeah.
It's similar to Shanahan designing offense.
He's almost that guy now. It may have been him that moved over. I don't know. And maybe that's why the personal protector goes, oh, they're setting something up over here. And
that's the most dangerous
there's a little subterfuge there. Mm-hmm. But Danny Smith, you can talk, you can complain about this or that with the special teams, whatever.
Yeah.
You can't complain about the Steelers having game-changing kick blocks in that part of the game. You just can't.
They have to be at the top of the league over the last 5 years or whatever. Have to be.
And it's a big part of the game, and they've been really good on teams this year.
Yeah, really good on teams. I was very concerned when Johnston got hurt. Waitman, the fact that we don't talk about him in a negative manner at all is all I need, and in fact, I think he's been quite good. I think I was on Mark Madden's show just now, and we were talking about Bosworth a little bit, and I'm like, Boswell, what did I call him?
Bosworth.
Brian Bosworth.
The Bos.
I mean, his career is almost Tucker-like at this point. Like, if you're going to start, like, he better be on a Hall of Fame ballot. Yeah, I'm not saying that he should go in, but, I mean, I'm not big on kickers going in. We know that. But, I mean, what he does every year is unbelievable.
And he's not talked about in that same fashion.
Right. At least mention him in that light.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's get to a break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And welcome back to hour number 2 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And Matt, it's fantasy football focus time here.
Yep.
Our DFS lineup, well, we got hit by the injury bug, and Marvin Harrison Jr. not only did he not finish the game, he left before he even caught a ball.
There was a handful of those around the league. I think Olave was close to that. I had Dallas Goedert in the league. I mean, there was a handful that just got hit early, and Harrison was the worst example, and it's almost impossible to win a DFS lineup like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you could maybe overcome Goddard getting a 0, maybe,
But, yeah, so we finished with 112 points and change. If we get 10 to 15 points out of Harrison, we're probably in the money on this one. But Jordan Love was a good call.
He's been really good.
Only 11.3% ownership with him, and again, that was not bad.
Just revolving door at wide receiver and tight end.
Doesn't matter.
They just have a bunch, and they spread it around, and he benefits all day long.
We had Bucky Irving in the lineup at 5,400. Well, guess what? 55.9% of people out there had Bucky Irving in the lineup in the particular contest we were in. So the 18.5 points we got at him were good, but
shared them with everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody had Tucker, though. His
No.
Running mate. I mean, they ran all over the
He'll be the
Saints.
hot pickup this week.
Yep.
We had Jahmyr Gibbs in the lineup. He had 12.1 points. It wasn't an awful day, but he didn't score.
As badly as they beat Dallas, you'd have loved to got more points out of him.
You needed Dallas to keep up a little bit.
They were never in like 3rd and long.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even a close game
Yeah,
at all.
he had 3 catches for 28 yards and 63 yards rushing. So, I mean,
He
had 91 total yards, but he didn't score, and
They
wasn't
didn't need him enough.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, 3rd downs is where he gets you your fantasy points.
Jalen Tolbert at $5,000 was owned in 17.9% of leagues. He had 4 catches for 43 yards, so 8.3 points.
Fine,
It's
not
not a
great,
killer,
not-
but-
right, not the best call.
Lad McConkey at $4,900. Again, we paid down 6.1% ownership there. Again, they didn't need to throw the football a whole
Not
lot.
that much, right?
He had four catches, 43 yards. Again, 8.3 points.
The process was right, though. He led the team in targets by a wide margin.
Yeah.
Like, keep an eye. If he stays cheap, I would definitely invest in him again.
Jaden Reed was our pay up at wide receiver at $7,000. 14.8 points out of him. I think he's pretty solid there, but that's just kind of an average.
He left the game for a smidge there, too.
Yeah. Dalton Schultz, again, we weren't necessarily wrong. He had 4 catches, but for only 27 yards, 6.7 points.
One of the problems, now that I'm looking at it, is Packers.
All of our guys were in blowouts, and
We
they
all won-
weren't the
all
ones who
won by
caught
a
the
million,
touchdowns. Yeah,
right,
they weren't
yeah.
the ones who caught the touchdowns or scored the touchdowns.
Yeah, they were all in big wins. And picked the right offenses.
It would have been nice to have Marvin Harrison Jr. in a game that Arizona lost 34-13 because they would have been in throw mode,
Mm-hmm.
but he was left early. The Buccaneers defense was the right call,
Oh, yeah.
but they were owned in 45% of leagues. We got 17 points out of them, but
Yeah, so did everybody else.
so did everybody else. So we'll try again next week.
Rattler
Again,
wasn't horrible, though.
no, and we almost went with Montgomery. We talked about Montgomery instead of
He
Gibbs.
was a little cheaper.
We could have gone cheaper there and gone with Montgomery and then maybe paid up at wide receiver.
It would be nice to have done that now, right? But
Yeah, I mean, we spent $7,200 on Marvin Harrison Jr. and got 0.
he got a 0. I'm sure
That's a killer.
just about everyone had him in their lineup. Did not win.
He was only owned in 3.9%.
Wow, surprised me.
Yeah, so I mean, if he would have hit, we'd have really benefited.
If he'd just been fine.
Yeah, if he just does it an average day, catches 6 passes for 78 yards and maybe a touchdown, we're good. We're fine. We're golden.
I mean, you get 0 in DFS. Good luck.
Killer, especially
Right.
for the $7,200
Expensive
player.
guy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was our most expensive guy in our roster, and it didn't work out. Looking at this week's top performers, despite all the points that were scored in the league this week, only 3 300-yard passers.
Huh, okay.
It was Baker Mayfield, 325, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He was not good in that game.
All early on, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, 323, a touchdown. He also had like 70 yards rushing.
Oh, yeah, he's been a terror.
Washington's defense is bad.
It is bad.
And now they lost Allen.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Jonathan Allen's out.
Looks like he might be out for the season. That's a big loss for
That is
them.
a big loss for them.
Jared Goff only threw. He was 18 of 25 for 315 yards, 3 touchdowns,
3 touchdowns.
no interceptions.
Yeah, they went right through Dallas's D.
And then again, when we talk about the passing, what the Steelers could do throwing the ball more, that's what I'm talking about here.
Yeah,
Dallas's defense was there to take if you could throw
Absolutely.
the football better.
Yep. The Lions are a really good offense.
Yeah, no, they're a very
There's
good
no
offense.
question.
It might be a good matchup. They just might match up well with Dallas. And then Geno Smith, 30 of 52 for 312, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions in that Thursday night game.
Yeah, and a losing cause, too.
Yeah.
But, okay. Wow, I'm surprised there weren't more 300-yard passers.
Jaden Daniels just missed at 260. Well, not just missed, but he was next up. He was 5th at 269 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts, 264 and 2 touchdowns against the Browns.
I wouldn't be worried if you were a
a
Daniels owner, though.
No,
I think he
no.
passed every test, and that's a
Didn't
really
make the
stiff
big mistake
competition.
against them.
Right.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any running game, as most teams don't against the Ravens.
Jordan Love, 258 and 4 touchdowns with an interception.
He's throwing touchdowns left and right since
Yeah.
he's been back.
Purdy had 255 and 3 touchdowns in the win over Seattle. Drake May, 240. He was 20 of 33 for 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, took 4 sacks. He fumbled. People thought, oh, what a great debut for Drake May. They were getting smoked in that game.
They're getting smoked in that game. I thought he was quite good and very, very promising, but he was under pressure every snap.
They can't. Their offensive line is the worst line in the league.
It's not
Hands
even
down.
close. It's inoperable. I do think May is very fantasy relevant, though. I mean, isn't quite Jaden Daniels as a runner, but he's not far off, and people don't give him that kind of credit, and they're always going to be losing.
Yeah, they are going to be losing.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler in his debut, 22 of 40 for 243, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, took 5 sacks. Again,
their O-line's a problem. Their offense has crashed, but he wasn't bad.
No.
By NFL standards, not
yeah.
fantasy.
Looking at the running backs, we had 5 100-yard rushers this week. Just 5. Sean Tucker, as you mentioned, 14 for 136 and a touchdown. He had a 36-yard run, so it was pretty consistent.
Yeah. Saints D was really, really bad.
He was
Their
playing more
tackling
of like a third down type role and then the supplemental role.
Yeah.
And they just, you know.
But now it's a 3-headed backfield, though.
I wonder if he replaces White as the pass-catching back.
I don't know. I have to look into that more. But I liked him coming out of Syracuse. I mean, like, there's ability there.
Yeah, because Irving had 14 for 81 and a touchdown himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're just better.
They're just better. And White's a good pass catcher, though. I mean, that's what he does well. I don't know how that's going to go. Saints are really
they're in trouble.
They're in bad shape.
They're in trouble.
Right now. Yeah.
Derrick Henry had 24 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. Najee Harris, 14.
Real quick, Henry's on pace for 25.5 touchdowns this year.
Yeah.
You knew he was going to score a lot, but I didn't think he'd be this good.
Najee Harris had 14 for 106 and a touchdown. This is the week we didn't play Najee.
No, we've been leaning on him heavy
because he hadn't been scoring touchdowns, and it's still been Fields when they're in close.
Yes, and that's the first running back touchdown of the year.
And he had to dive the last 5 yards to get there.
Just He had a great game. He was phenomenal.
Oh, it's tremendous. Yeah. And then Tyler Algier, 18 for 105 and a touchdown, out-touched Bijan Robinson in that game. Mm-hmm. But Bijan had the first 2 touchdown game of his career.
Bijan is still very much the passing down back. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's huge for fantasy, as you know. He's going to catch a lot of balls. But they're pretty much a 50-50 split in terms of rushes.
Yeah.
That's hard, And Algier's good.
He's a good
Everyone
player.
gave Arthur Smith a hard time.
And Carolina's run defense is not.
No, it's not.
It's really bad.
It really is.
And then the final 100-yard rusher,
out there.
Joe Mixon, 13 for 102 and a touchdown, also caught a touchdown. He looks like he's rejuvenated.
Yeah, he really does. And, boy, they're 2 different offenses with and without him. Doesn't say a lot for the other guys, to be honest, but he's playing very well right now.
Did Cincinnati make a mistake letting him walk?
Maybe. He's never been great in protection, and I know that's always been an issue with them. They always had the P. Ryans of the world. And I don't think the 2 backs they have now are bad. But
Mixon's better.
If he's better, that's what I say. He's better, and you're trying to win the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, you kind of didn't want to pay him a couple million. I mean, you're squabbling over a couple $1 million.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of they won last night, but it wasn't pretty.
No, it wasn't. And I think the Giants are better than people think, too, by the way. I thought they were the better team, to be very honest with you.
They just don't have a quarterback.
They had a quarterback's problem. But I wouldn't mind inheriting that team to take over, especially when they had neighbors.
Isaac Guerrero had 99 rushing yards, just missed. He had 10 for 199, had a 76-yarder.
He broke a long one, though. Right. He's fast.
Don't run out and grab him.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure he's the number 1 if Mason's out.
Yeah. J.K. Dobbins had 25 for 96 and a touchdown against Denver. Also caught a few passes.
Awesome, too.
Yeah.
He's very, very legit.
As I mentioned, Bijan had 15 for 95 and 2 scores. Tony Pollard, 17 for 93 and a touchdown. And the backup got hurt.
I say Spears is week to week. I don't think he's going to play this week. Pollard's a good fit there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's every week starter for sure in fantasy.
Pollard, a number 1. You wish their passing game was better.
I know.
It would make him more valuable.
I don't think Levis threw for 100 yards.
He's awful.
He's really bad.
Awful.
And they're not going to bench him soon.
Yeah. But as you like, Chuba Hubbard again, 18 for 92, didn't score this week in a game they lost by 18 points.
Mm-hmm.
Like bad teams can have running. You're trying to.
Pollard could do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. And plus they'll throw him screens and get him involved, and yeah.
DeAndre Swift had 90-plus yards, 17 for 91 and a touchdown. I thought he looked good.
I think he looks really good, and I've been really hesitant. He's such a roller coaster as a player and career, and he started the season horrible. Last 3 or 4 games, he's been really, really good, and they're starting to figure things out, and the quarterback's looking better, and they blew the doors off the Jags. And I mentioned there's some bad Ds. Jags are one of them.
I heard this last night as I was driving home after we landed. don't get caught up in the Bo Nix. Bo Nix was pure garbage time.
Pure garbage time. Yep.
He had 57 passing yards entering the fourth quarter of that game.
Mm-hmm.
He finished with much more than that, and he also ran 6 times for 61 yards. But
he was their leading rusher.
Yeah, don't get caught up in that.
Year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for fantasy, the rushing is important, of course, but he's not a good player right now.
There are a lot of quarterbacks who had 50 or more rushing yards this week.
Were there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there are the more I think about it.
Looking at, obviously, Nix had 61. Fields had 59. Caleb Williams had 56. Daniel Jones had 56. Joe Burrow had 55.
That was all in one run.
Lamar had 11 for 40.
Yeah, goes a long way.
Yeah.
Goes a long way.
That being said, as I mentioned before, Russell Wilson is not a statue.
No, he will get you. I mean, he'd be 10 yards a game or so. I mean, maybe more.
More than He had more than 300 yards or 300 rushing yards last year in 15 games.
Yeah.
So, this is not end stage Ben. Looking at the receivers, you got just five with over 100 receiving yards this week.
That makes sense if we had 300-yard passers too.
Zay Flowers had 9 for 132. I had him in my DFS lineup, the one that I put together.
He's been quite good lately. I mean, that offense is clicking in all cylinders right now, but he's clearly the most featured receiver.
Chris Godwin, 11 for 125 and 2 scores.
He's had a great year.
Yeah.
He's a good player.
A.J. Brown, 6 for 116 and a touchdown.
That's a weird, ugly game.
Really was, but he came through in typical A.J. Brown type game. Evan Ingram with his return, 10 for 102. Didn't score, though. Nothing new there.
No, nothing new there. But, I mean, in the tight end landscape, he's easily a top 10 guy. I mean, I would jump right back in on that.
Yeah.
Lawrence likes him. He throws him the ball a lot.
And then Deebo Samuel, 3 for 102 and a touchdown.
Okay. That seems like 100 years ago.
Yeah, didn't. Just missing Trey McBride, 8 for 96. Some of that could have been to Harrison if he didn't get hurt. Demario Douglas, 6 for 192 and a touchdown.
Monitor it. I wouldn't get too excited.
Somebody's got to catch the ball. I mean, if we think that May is going to throw the ball.
Right. I mean, I do think May's not going to have – I think he's going to throw 200-plus all the time.
C.D. Lamb had 7 for 89 but did not score.
A little disappointing. I mean, as most first-round picks were this year, but he's not killing you, but he's a little disappointing for what you paid for him.
Deontay Johnson had 6 for 78 and a score.
He really likes Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Very
probably.
Happy, yeah.
Right.
Devon Vele did it again, 4 for 78 this time. Again, that was mop-up time, but
I assume he's the slot.
Second big game here, yeah. T. Higgins had 7 for 77, didn't score. Stephon Diggs, 6 for 77 and a touchdown. Jamison Williams, only 3 catches, but for 76 yards and a score.
That's who he is.
Drake London, 6 for 74 and a score.
Outside of week 1, London's been great.
Yeah. Khalif Raymond, 4 for 73.
I mean, just everybody in that offense.
Yeah, they all ate. Jamar Chase, 5 for 72, didn't score.
They had a tough time getting him the ball, though.
And he kind of complained after the game. Yeah, we won the game, but that wasn't Bengals football. Because, they only put up 17 points. And Burrow had the long run. Brock Bowers, 9 catches, but for only 71 yards.
Yeah, take it.
Rashad Bateman had 4 for 71. I'm not ready to buy in on that one yet.
No, but he's a quality number 2 for them.
Cole Kmet, 5 for 70 and 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns, yeah.
He looked good.
Yeah, he did. I've been hesitant on him, too, but he looks good.
Kyle Pitts, 3 for 70. Are we ready to get back on the Pitts bus? They didn't throw for a lot of yardage in that game. But
they didn't.
He got 70 yards. He had a 52-yard catch.
I think he's probably a top 12 guy. I mean, Bijan's going to get a handful of catches every game. London's clearly the one. Mooney, Pitts. I think that's how that's going to go.
Yeah. Zach Ertz, 4 for 68.
He's been better than you think, too.
Been pretty solid.
He's on the field all the time now.
Yeah.
It's not Sinat at all,
Just looking here. Oh, here's another tight end. Grant Calcaterra with the Eagles had 4 for 67.
Well, because he's Goddard. I mean,
at the expense of Goddard.
Absolutely. Goddard was hurt, I think, on the first series and then ruled out shortly after.
We had Mark Andrews sighting, 3 for 66 and a touchdown, but
he's gradually doing more and more. Snap counts are going up and things. I'm glad I didn't drop him, but I'm not happy I drafted him.
Yeah, not where you had to take him.
Of course.
And then you had.
I think that's his first touchdown too.
That is his first touchdown. Noah Fant had 6 for 63.
He was one of everyone's favorite preseason sleepers, and it's okay. those other three are just going to get more than him. And Walker's now getting more involved in the passing game too.
Yeah.
They throw it
a lot of mouths to feed. They do throw a lot, despite having two good running backs, but their defense can't keep up.
That's part of the problem.
That's the problem.
Now, right? They're coming back to earth because of the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So some interesting names on there, some guys that you can look at possibly as pickups there. Let's see if there's any other.
I don't think the waiver wire is going to be real rich this week.
Just looking here at the running backs, Emmanuel Wilson at 7 for 54 again.
Oh, he's involved.
He definitely
all the time.
should be. Yeah,
it's a good offense, right? I mean,
Tyrone Tracy didn't have a big day running the ball against the Bengals,
looks good, though.
But I don't think Singletary's getting back on the field for them. That was a full-time role.
I don't think so either. I think Tracy's an important guy to them.
And Pierre Strong gave the Browns a little something, 8 for 43. Ford got hurt. He got hurt early in that game, and
they were talking during that game that they were as if Chubb is definitely coming back next week. That seems ambitious to me, but
we don't know what he's going to look like.
Oh, I know, but it's going to hurt Strong.
Yeah.
That offense is really bad.
It's broken.
It's really bad.
Deshaun Watson he hasn't thrown for 200 yards this year. They're the only team in the league that hasn't broken 20 points.
I still need to read it, but Mike Sando did a real detailed thing that I cut and pasted and sent to you about the real way you can get out of Watson, and it's crazy. I mean, the little I looked at it, I think they're suggesting things like the Brock Osweiler trade, like take all the contract and we'll give you this. Right now they're picking second overall.
Oh, I know.
Like they might cost like the second overall pick to get rid of them. I mean, if you have a ton of cap space.
I don't know if they can go down that road. Can they give away more draft picks, though?
I know. I mean, it's just a nightmare of where they're at. I mean, it was hypothetical, but we were talking on my podcast today about the Hutchinson injury. And it was like, could they pry Max Crosby away from the Raiders? Reddick seems like a target for them for sure. And my co-host like, what if you gave them everything for Myles Garrett? Like, I understand it. Like if you're the Browns, it's like we're at that point. You know, if I get 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett,
you got to take Myles Garrett, and we're
going to take Watson.
We're going to throw in Deshaun Watson too.
Right.
You got to take him.
You got to take him. Right.
You were talking about blowing it up.
Right.
This is where you're at.
That's where you're at because you got to get rid of some serious assets to make up for this error.
Just a monumental. The worst contract in NFL history.
Right. Worst trade, worst contract, all the above. He stinks.
Yeah. He is awful.
Yep.
Let's get to a break. That's going to do it for the Fantasy Football Focus. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, at 4-2, the Steelers now, if the playoffs begin today, and I understand the playoffs do not begin today.
Week 7 isn't over yet.
They would be the number 5 seed in the AFC.
Okay.
They would play the Buffalo Bills in the opening round. That could change, however, tonight.
I would imagine.
If the Jets win that game tonight, the Jets move into first place in the AFC East. They're currently in the 9 spot right now in the AFC because they're 2-3.
So who do we want to win tonight?
Who do you think's a more dangerous team?
Buffalo. But the Jets are next on the agenda.
Jets are up next.
I'd like Bad Mojo to sweep the Jets for at least a couple weeks.
Worse than what's already happened? They just fired their coach.
That's what I mean. There's plenty already. I mean, I still think that playing overseas and not having the bye week this week is craziness. I mean, they get 1 extra day playing on Monday night, but then they got a short week to come here. I mean, I think you're getting I say this all the time, you're getting them at a good time. I mean, there's never a bad time. I mean, the league's just that way. But I wouldn't mind them getting their doors blown off tonight.
The big thing here right now for the Steelers is that they're 3-1 in the conference.
Yeah, that's huge.
If you look at it right now, Houston is 4-0 in the conference. They've got the most conference wins. Kansas City is 3-0 in the conference.
Sure.
And then the Steelers are sitting there at 3-1 in the conference. Buffalo's 2-2 in the conference. Baltimore is 2-2 in the conference.
So apparently if the season ended today, Baltimore would be the division champ?
They win the tiebreaker based on best win percentage in division games because they played one division game. The Steelers haven't played any.
I assumed that was what it came
That's the only difference between the two teams right now.
Right. So, I mean, obviously you have 6 more to play and they have 5 more to play.
If the Steelers if they had both played a division game and were both 1-0, the Steelers would have the tiebreaker based on the conference record.
So if the Steelers beat the Browns yesterday, they would be
in first place.
First place, okay, yeah. That's because they just haven't a chance to be a division team.
Obviously, there's a lot to be determined yet.
Of course.
Cincinnati, which had been the last team, number 16 in the conference, got that win yesterday. But
I think that would have eliminated them if they wouldn't have.
But it was against an NFC team.
Yeah,
so it didn't help. Right. They're 0-3 right now in the conference.
Brutal. But if they lost, I think their season.
Oh, they would have been in deep trouble. Yeah. They're also 0-1 in the division, and they've lost 3 home games.
Yeah, all their tiebreaker stuff, all that kind of stuff is
not good.
Periphery stuff is real
it's not good.
They're going to need some big wins.
Yeah, Cleveland's now 1-5.
I kind of feel like Cincy almost has to win out in the division.
Yeah,
something crazy like
something
that.
crazy.
Yeah,
Cleveland is 1-5, but they're only 1-1 in the conference. They've only played 2 AFC games, and they're 1-5.
I don't see them getting better anytime soon either.
I don't see that either. They're still not the worst team. New England and Jacksonville are both below them in the quote-unquote playoff standings based on tiebreakers and all that good stuff. Cleveland's done, though.
What's that?
Cleveland's done.
Cleveland's officially done, yeah. I don't know if they're going to trade Myles Garrett to the Lions. I mean, I just threw that out there. But I'm trading Amari Cooper. I'm trading – you got to start moving parts. I bet they're worse as the season goes on roster-wise.
Yeah.
And maybe the quarterback position's better if they put Winston in.
They're not going to do that though. Kevin Stefanski came out. I don't think he can.
Oh, I think the owner said you're.
The owner says no. Right. We're locked in with this guy for $73 million the next 2 seasons. You're playing him.
Yeah.
I'm paying him. You're playing him.
And if you cut him, it's like $170 million.
It's amazing what the loss is there.
And they kicked the can down the road recently again.
So the teams that are out of it right now, Tennessee's 1-4.
Yeah, they're done.
They're done.
Levis is bad too.
Cleveland's 1-5. New England's 1-5.
Done.
Jacksonville's 1-5. Over in the NFC, you've got Carolina.
Jacksonville's definitely done. Yeah, they're
1-5. They're done. Carolina's 1-5. The Rams are 1-4.
Not quite done. I mean, real close. I mean, I know mathematically it's really hard, and I think the NFC is harder to get to the 7th spot than the AFC is.
Right now it is because the 7th spot. Right now in the NFC. The Chicago Bears at 4-2 would not be in the playoffs.
They're playing well.
The Eagles at 3-2 would not be in the playoffs.
I didn't fact check this, but I heard somebody on a podcast say it that the 4 best point differentials
are all in the
they're all in the NFC North
because they're all playing these crap teams from the AFC.
Oh, they've been killing them too.
Yeah,
but boy, that division's on fire right now.
It's playing well. The only team right now in the NFC who's in the playoffs with a 500 or worse record is San Francisco at 3-3
because they're winning their division.
Because they're winning the division.
Mm-hmm. They might be a sleeping giant.
In the AFC, the 7th spot right now is Indianapolis at 3-3.
I guess that adds up, but I don't think they're good.
Yeah. So Cincinnati's now 1 game out of a playoff spot, as is Miami, as are the Jets. Which, if they win tonight, they move into that. And that would drop, I believe. We'll find. I don't know this for sure, but let's see. That would put the Bills at 2-3 in the conference. Yeah, and the Colts are 2-2 in the conference. So the Colts would move into. They would stay in that 7th spot. The Bills would be out of the playoffs.
Wow. Real quick, we kind of breezed over the Colts. Shane Steichen said within the hour that Richardson's playing this week. He's starting this week.
Yeah.
Flacco gives him a better chance to win.
He really does.
I mean, he does. I mean, but the Levises and Richardsons of the world are going to play for a while and probably not elevate them anywhere.
Yeah, so it's really, when you start looking at it, Denver's not going anywhere.
No, they won 3 in a row, but they're not good.
Yeah, they're now 3-3.
I still think that I'm down on the Chargers overall, but I think they could be one of the 7.
They're in the 6th spot right now.
Yeah, and they play defense and run the ball, and they'll beat bad teams.
Yeah,
I mean they're set up,
and that's what they've got the next 3 weeks. They got bad football. They're getting New Orleans at the right time.
They have a really
places,
schedule.
Teams like that.
I think they have a real good chance to get in. How the AFC's fallen.
So why I started this conversation was okay. So the teams that are done.
Yeah, all the 1-win teams.
The 1-win teams are definitely there.
They're shot.
It's time to start looking elsewhere. So you got the Titans.
It's 2-win teams or something?
1-win team.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's nobody. Cleveland's not going to trade the Steelers anybody. Amari Cooper is not coming to Pittsburgh.
Right. Of course. He could go to the Chiefs or wherever. But
the Patriots don't have anybody that anybody wants to trade for.
Right.
Jacksonville and Tennessee, however, got some receivers that
I would hate to be in this market, but is it time to look for O lineman too?
I don't. You're going to get Dylan Cook back this week. We'll see how bad it is with Zack Frazier.
I mean, we could have this conversation tomorrow, maybe as opposed to today. But I don't think it's that point. I mean,
and who has extra offensive linemen?
That's why I don't want to go down that road. It's the worst aisle in the world to shop in.
Yeah.
But if there's an expiring contract in Jacksonville or Tennessee or something, you can get him for a 6th-round pick for insurance, maybe. But I think I know where you're going. There's pass catchers in those two towns.
Catchers in those two towns that aren't being used. To me,
Kirk is attractive.
I'd look at Christian Kirk in Jacksonville and say, hey, he's your third guy right now. You're not. He's not super expensive. I think his contract. I looked it up on Sunday as I'm watching that game. I'm like, the rest of the season, he's like $8 million.
Yeah, you could stomach that. He's worth it. Is he up after the year?
He's got another year after this.
I didn't think so.
Yeah,
and they also just used a 1st-round pick on a receiver and got one of their best receivers, Ingram, back. Like, it doesn't even hurt them that much on game day the way they're using him.
Yeah.
I would have no interest in Gabe Davis. Kirk would be the only one I'd want from the team.
They overpaid to get Gabe Davis to begin with,
bad
and bad move. But they paid him, so they want to. You don't want to play him. If I'm Christian Kirk, would be a great target for me.
Yeah, you mentioned Ridley off the air. Hopkins is a name we brought up here and there.
They're both older, though.
I know.
I don't know.
I'd pay.
I don't know if they're
less
good right now.
What about a Lockett if they could lose another one or two? I mean, there's a connection there with Wilson, and they would be cheap options.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up a priority pick for them. Could you get Cooper Kupp? Cooper's not
you
going
want
anywhere.
Cooper Kupp.
I don't know what I'm giving up for those guys. I'm sure there's even more names. Who are the 2 loss teams? Like
2 win teams. You mean?
2 win teams.
You're looking at the Jets. If the Jets lose tonight,
you get Mike Williams for a pile of pennies.
Yeah, but I don't know that you want to go that route. I mean,
Right.
he hasn't done anything. Miami's 2-3. They're not trading anybody.
Guys,
yeah,
they're waiting for Tua.
The Raiders are 2-4.
Well, we know that name.
Yeah,
Although
Jacoby Myers would be
he'd be very useful here.
He'd be interesting to me.
No question. The Bengals aren't going to trade you Higgins. But
No.
Maybe they would trade Higgins with another loss or two somewhere.
Yeah, I think their schedule gets a little easier now as well.
If they would have lost last night, maybe someone would pry him away.
They got the Browns next week. Then they play the Eagles at home. Then they get the Raiders at home.
By the way, Eagles don't look like much of a challenge.
Yeah, they're not in the playoffs right now.
They're in the Steelers' schedule coming up.
And then they're at the Ravens, at the Chargers, Steelers at home, at the Cowboys. Things get a little more dicey.
By trade deadline time, they should still be in it then.
Yeah.
The loss last night would have been catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be on the phone with Jacksonville for sure.
I think that's the best and most logical target we brought up. I wouldn't mind having him for next year too.
Again, I think with the Giants, Slayton would still interest me.
A lot.
He's super cheap.
Are they ready to be done with him?
They're 2-4.
Yeah, losing last night goes a long way with that. He would be their Steelers' second best receiver.
Yeah.
And useful. Every time he's out there, he makes plays.
Obviously, you're not trading back for Deontay Johnson, Carolina Panthers.
No, but I think he could get traded.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get Cooper, Higgins, or Johnson, but they could go to other teams that need them, and not, Chiefs or whoever.
That's just some of the teams I'd be looking at there. Like, hey, you guys ready to? And I understand you're going to make that international call this week. Jacksonville, if they're not making a trade this week while they're in London,
I guess not.
And maybe they win.
Planes work from there.
Maybe they win in London this week. I don't know who they play. They play the Patriots over there.
Someone bad, yeah.
Yeah, they play the Patriots, so they should win that one. But they're still going to be 2-5. 2-5.
I thought the coach might have got fired if they weren't spending 2 weeks over there.
Yeah.
Stick them on a boat.
Bad football team.
That's a bad football team. And they were sabotaging themselves, and they're a tough watch. They're kind of like the Raiders a little bit.
Yeah. The Titans this week, they get the Bills at Buffalo.
Maybe one more loss is the move for those guys.
They're not going to win that one.
I don't know if they would trade Ridley, though. I mean, he just signed him. That's a rare move in the NFL. I mean, he's complaining, and I don't blame him.
I mean, Hopkins, I guess, would be the guy that you go after in that situation, but
he's like Lockett. Like, I'm giving you a 6th-round pick. And,
yeah, they're just trying to get that contract off the books. And
right?
Yeah, I don't even know what Hopkins is making this year, the rest of the way, but it's probably not cheap because he signed that a couple of years ago.
I bet they owe him another 10 or something like that, maybe more.
And he's not a separator, never has been.
No.
And that's part of the problem right now is that the other guys aren't separated.
I'd have to study more, but he started the season very slow and injured. It seems like he's doing more now, but
he's only 8.2 in the base salary, so you're looking at basically two-thirds of that. So about 5.
I think he's not up after the year.
Yes, he is.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's got voidable years after this. That he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So
I mean, you're a lot better with him for a 6th-round pick. I mean, I'm not even giving you a 4th.
Yeah.
I mean, he's old and you can get him cheap.
Yeah. Just something to kick around.
Yeah, I think you need to explore all those options.
Yeah, just for the teams that are.
You think Adams gets moved? I thought it happened by now.
The word out there is that,
one of the bigwigs, Schefter or one of them said, well, now there might be friends again or whatever.
Yeah, because he likes Aiden O'Connell. He couldn't have been happy about what he saw Sunday.
How could you possibly like that situation?
Yeah.
I don't think they'll move.
The contract with him, though, is the thing that it's a lot of money.
It is hairy, yeah.
And
he's the best player we've mentioned.
Yeah. But I don't know that you need the best player.
Right. I mean, if that costs you a 2nd-round pick as opposed to a 6th-round pick for one of these other
a huge difference.
Like price value and all that, Kirk seems like the most logical.
Kirk would be the guy that would make the most sense because I think you can get him, even if it's a 5.
He's got some toughness to him. He'll block, too. He can play slot. He can play outside. You could add a 1st-round pick at any receiver spot, and he would fit in the gaps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or what? 2nd round. It doesn't have to be a 1st-round pick, but whatever.
Maybe be kind of a steadying factor.
Been around the block, wouldn't hurt.
Yeah. So just something to kick around out there. Maybe Omar Khan is listening to the show, and hey, let's
or any of your. Maybe
he's already got those ideas, and
I think he's probably been down that road.
Yeah. Talked about these things. But anyways, let's get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're going through the aftermath of a 32-13 win by the Steelers in Las Vegas on Sunday. And as I mentioned when we had Rob King on earlier in the show, the takeover of the stadium by Steeler fans.
It looked overwhelming on TV.
Might have been the biggest one I've ever seen.
Really? Adds up. I mean, I think one of us asked Missy something along those lines. Could this be? I mean, such a destination spot, so easy to get to, different climate than this for a fun getaway.
But how many Steeler fans do you think actually live in Vegas? Because that's just, I think, was kind of like they're saying it was going to be 50-50. It was not 50-50.
Vegas area codes bought it, and they are Steeler fans. Right.
Right.
I mean, it's a transplant
live
city
in Phoenix,
anyways,
and
right?
they drove up. I had a friend that he works as a spotter at times. He used to be the producer on for the game day broadcast, and he lives in Phoenix now. He drove like 3.5-4 hours up from Phoenix to.
It's easy and it's fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I'm sure when they the ticket, they're judging all that stuff. They're saying, oh, this person's from Phoenix. They're coming because they're a Raiders fan.
Yeah, no, right. The Raiders fans live in Oakland and L.A.
Yeah,
I don't even think they live in Vegas all that much. I mean, they're new there. That's on home to them. I would think you get. I bet there's more. I bet Vegas fans in the city of Las Vegas don't make up 50% of the NFL fans. I bet everyone else beats you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The 31. Right. It's
Nobody's from Vegas.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, everyone just brings their team there. Nobody grew up in Vegas as a Raider fan necessarily.
Right. That didn't.
But,
maybe 5 people.
A handful, right. I found it humorous that they gave away free towels.
Well, they all do. Every stadium we go to on the road does that.
Is that happening all the time now?
There's always they always hand out towels.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's everywhere. That's what they do to try to combat the Steeler fans with the terrible towels because it's a bad look when your team is coming out of the tunnel and everybody's booing your team and they see all the yellow towels for them.
Right. And it didn't do its job by giving them away. I'm sure there's a lot of them laying on in the trash and got thrown away. That's crazy to me. And so it sounded like there was several Steeler events. There was one you were at too.
Yeah, we did the Road Warrior party.
And Rob was talking about how on all the streets there's black and gold, and like the whole town you felt it, even like not on game day in the stadium.
We were at the Road Warrior party, and I went to the restroom, and I walked in there, and it was me, and there were 2 guys who apparently were Raider fans in there.
Okay.
and they're talking back and forth with each other, and I'm standing behind them waiting, and the one guy goes, "I can't believe you brought me to this Steeler bar. What the heck is this? This is Las Vegas."
Didn't know what they were walking
They had no
into.
idea that they were walking into into this, and like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, not a good look, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I mean, kudos to them, and I got to tell you, the fans at Acrisure Stadium this Sunday, you got to bring it.
Yeah,
that crowd brought it. You got to bring it like that.
I mean,
you're capable. We've seen it before.
They got it in them. I mean, they withstood the delay, the night game. Last time there was a night game here.
Yeah.
I mean, so now you got another win under your belt. More difficult opponent. I mean, it should be a good environment, I would think, this week.
Yeah, don't let the Jets fans come down and
they'll be a little green, but I wouldn't think a ton.
Wouldn't think a ton,
especially if they lose tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean that crowd were rocking and affected the game. I thought.
I'd say, did it affect the game a fair amount? I mean, third downs and true passing situations. It certainly worked in the Steelers' favor.
Yeah, made it certainly harder on the home team to operate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, and when your offense has the football in your own stadium and the chance of defense are audible. I mean,
or you're going to a silent count.
You got to be standing on the sideline going, "What the heck?" But
what is going on here?
This is what they bought into.
Oh yeah.
When they moved the team there, it's almost like when the Chargers went to L.A.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what you're going to get.
You have no choice, right?
You set yourself up for this because
you don't play the Steelers every week, but still,
the Raiders went to a destination city, and it's easy to get to. It's a place everybody wants to go.
I would think Steelers aside, that stadium gets the most road fans in the league.
Good number.
I mean, just for all those reasons.
I just remember the only thing that I've ever seen quite like that for a Steeler road game was the game in L.A. when they played the Chargers at the soccer stadium.
Yeah, and there was like 30,000, and it was like all Steeler fans.
It was all Steeler fans. I mean, it was a tiny, intimate setting for an NFL game. It's probably the smallest stadium I've ever covered, and I've covered Steeler games, and I did a count. This was probably 10 years ago, and it was over 70 stadiums at that point.
You're probably over 80 now.
I'm over that now.
Way over, right.
And that one was the biggest, it was the smallest stadium, but it was the biggest pro-Steeler crowd I think I've ever seen.
Highest percentage of Steeler fans.
On the road.
Probably. Yeah.
And this one topped that.
Wow. And I'm sure it was louder because it's bigger. And
you're indoors, and
I've heard the stadium itself is awesome, though.
It's a nice stadium.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, they did a good job with it.
The press box is decent and all that, too, like the view and everything.
The only thing I don't like the indoor press boxes that don't have glass, and I know this sounds stupid, but you're getting all the crowd noise in the press box.
Right. Like you're part of the crowd.
So they still had the in press box announcements. I couldn't hear any of it. Nobody could.
I bet not. Okay.
Nobody could. The guy might as well be talking to himself.
Yeah.
So I'm
most
watching.
Our listeners probably don't even know what those are. I mean,
but he announces what the play was after it happened because
tackle by
we're, 500 feet in the air,
and they'll tell you things like this linebacker's questionable to return.
Things of that nature.
Things you need to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Make announcements about different things that are happening. Those kind of things, and I couldn't hear any of it.
How's Vegas?
I couldn't even hear when the officials on the field were making an announcement about a penalty or something like that. I had to look at the TV to see who the penalty was on.
Oh, okay.
Things of that nature because...
And if it had been glassed in, you could do your job easier.
It makes it easier.
Yeah.
But it is, it's nice.
It's cool, but... Right.
Yeah, you're kind of getting the whole atmosphere, when you can hear that stuff. And they do it on the game broadcast. They'll leave the windows open or what have you if they do have windows there.
Yeah.
So you get the crowd ambience.
Right.
But...
I mean, Steelers can do that, too. They can have the window open.
And that's, how I knew how loud it was.
Yeah,
when
you're in it.
The Steeler fans were, might as well have been sitting in the crowd.
So, I haven't been to many press boxes. Are 2/3 of them, 3/4 of them windowed?
Yeah. The indoor stadiums are really the ones, the domes and things of that nature. And even some of the domes have windows in the press box. Some of them don't.
Yeah. But it's much different.
I'm trying to think now. I think Atlanta is enclosed.
Okay.
I know Minneapolis is. There's some that are definitely enclosed. That it just makes it easier.
Yeah, you don't want your head ringing while you're writing stories and taking notes and stuff. Right.
So last week, and I think I don't know if I brought this up on the show or not. On the Manning cast last Monday night, I think maybe I did bring this up, and somebody wrote a story about it was kind of went viral on the X Twitter that Belichick accused the Colts of cheating by piping in sound. I'm like, oh no.
No, they cheated.
They cheated and they got caught.
And they got caught.
And after a game against the Steelers, it was Ed Bouchette who broke it because, and Dan Rooney, they were down on the field and they're looking, they get the speakers sitting next to the stands, and they're piping in, they're pointed at the field and pointed at the visiting team bench, and they were piping crowd noise in.
And that is illegal.
That you can't do that.
That is illegal.
And that was an open air press box. And I remember that was the loudest it's ever been. My ears rang for 3 days after that one.
It was like being in the front row of a Metallica concert.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that.
If the person you were sitting next to in the press box, you couldn't talk. You couldn't communicate. Even if you got up and yelled in their ear, it didn't matter. You couldn't hear.
Text them or write a note if you're standing, if the two of us are this close together, right? Wow.
Just insane.
I forget what the penalty was, but it should be steep.
It was steep, yeah.
I don't think it was a first-round pick or anything, but it should be steep.
Yeah, but those, that's
you compare that to deflating footballs. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah, that's trying to gain a competitive advantage by piping in crowd noise.
Yeah. Vegas food press box. What do they go with?
Yeah, we had breakfast foods.
Breakfast foods.
They had great. They have very good desserts.
Okay.
That's twice we've been out there now last year, and the desserts were great.
Nice.
But the food was.
I didn't know what they'd be known for.
It was fine.
Okay.
They had a pierogi dog, thinking that they're it's a Pittsburgh thing.
Okay. That's not for everybody.
It was not for a couple of guys tried it. It didn't look. It was like some potato chips on top of it. That's not a pierogi.
I don't
and hey, what's that have to do with Pittsburgh? I've never seen a pierogi dog in Pittsburgh.
No, right. They're two different animals.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
But the crowd at Acrisure this week.
Stepping back up. Yeah,
bring it.
I'm sure there's some carryovers. I'm sure a lot of you some that were in Vegas will be there.
Absolutely,
keep it rolling.
Keep that rolling, and we'll see if the Steelers can get a win to get to 5-2.
That'd be huge.
You win these next two and get to 7-2 or 6-2 at your bye.
Yeah,
you're in really good shape.
You're in really good shape, and got guys like Sutton coming back, and some of those things too. No more O-line injuries. That's my big concern.
No more O-line injuries.
I'm hoping this time tomorrow we're feeling a little better about the Zack Frazier situation.
Yeah, we'll see what Mike Tomlin has to say.
Jets.
Yeah, I want to watch that one and see. I've watched them last week because they were in London.
You said their run defense is bad. I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah, it's not very good.
Their defense is pretty good overall, but
it's hard to pass against them, and maybe that's they're kind of a run funnel team. We'll see.
Yeah, I think they are.
But yeah, so we'll see. Of course, you can listen to The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m., as you're doing right now.
Heck yeah.
Or you can, download it on demand on the podcast on the Steelers official mobile app. You can watch that also on the, if you go to the Steelers website, the show goes up there because we also video it, and you can watch it on YouTube as well.
Yep. It's good stuff.
Leave some comments. Again, like to answer the comments on there. I'll go in there and interact with you. If you have a question about the show, you have a question about the Steelers, whatever it is.
Rumor has it you get more downloads after wins.
I can understand why.
So we're going to be a lot of people looking at our smiling face right now.
Absolutely, but we do appreciate you listening and downloading and sharing with your friends. Again, there at the Steeler party. There were a lot of people who came up and said they listened to the show. We appreciate that.
Cool.
As I was walking across the field last night on the way to the buses, people were yelling. Again, appreciate all our listeners out there. We love it. We appreciate all you guys listening. But that is going to do it for today's edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. For my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, keeping us on the air. For Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets everywhere that it needs to go. I'm Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.